All right, in today's Explainer, we're going to dig into something that could be a real lifeline for what's a cornerstone of our communities, local news. We're talking about a new operating system called LocalPress, and its whole mission is to rebuild local journalism from the ground up. So let's jump in and see how it works. Okay, let's start with a really stark number, 80%. Just let that sink in. By 2026, that's how many journalists are expected to report feeling completely burned out. And look, this isn't just about people being stressed at work. No, this is a huge, flashing red light signaling that the entire system is, well, fundamentally broken. And that burnout, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's being fueled by a perfect storm of crises hitting all at once. For starters, about half of us are just plain worn out by the news. Then you've got social media platforms, which used to be this fire hose of readers, and now they've basically turned off the tap. On top of that, this flood of untrustworthy AI slop is making it harder for anyone to know what's real. And all of this is happening while the old school revenue models have just completely fallen apart. So, this brings up a really crucial question, one that kind of reframes the whole problem. What if the issue isn't the news itself, or the journalists doing the work? What if the real problem is the shaky, broken foundation everything is built on? It suggests that we don't just need a quick fix or a patch. We need to tear it down and build a whole new architecture. All right, so let's dig into that new architecture. This is the first big idea behind LocalPress, and it's all about using geography as the foundation for everything. They call it structural localism. And the key idea here is to stop thinking about a location as just a keyword you slap onto a story. Instead, what if geography was the actual blueprint for the entire system? Yeah, this whole principle, it's not an afterthought. It's baked right into the DNA of the platform. LocalPress is designed from the get-go to be the infrastructure for a totally modern virtual newsroom. We're not talking about a physical building with a big sign out front. We're talking about a system that's deeply, deeply embedded in the fabric of the community it's supposed to be covering. And here's where it gets really interesting. This is the critical difference. So normally, you write an article and just tag it with, say, Cleveland, right? Well, with LocalPress, that article doesn't just get a tag. It actually lives inside a digital Cleveland folder, which lives inside a county folder, and so on, see? The location isn't just a label anymore. It's the address. It defines everything, where it sits, who gets permission to edit it, and even how people find it. It's a total game changer. This table really lays it out perfectly. You can see how this hierarchy works, creating these kind of like concentric circles of what's relevant. So you might have a story about a school board vote, which is super granular, right? It lives at that school district level. But the system is smart enough to know that this school district is part of a city, which is part of a county. And what does that mean? It means a really hyperlocal story can naturally bubble up and find a wider audience if it has bigger implications. It's pretty brilliant. Okay, so we've got this awesome structure based on location. That's step one. But how do we make sure the stuff inside that structure is actually trustworthy? Well, LocalPress has a really cool answer for that. It's a workflow they call Show Your Receipts. And this integrity model, as they call it, is a direct shot at all the misinformation and AI junk out there. The core idea is actually super simple, but really powerful. You have to provide verifiable primary source evidence. And it's not a suggestion. It's a core, non-negotiable part of the process. So how do they enforce this? Through a really strict 5-step pipeline that every single piece of content has to go through. Let's look at the key moments here. First, a reporter has to add their sources, like the actual documents, into a source vault. Then, and this is huge, when they hit submit, it doesn't just go live. No way. It goes into an editor's queue. That editor is like a final gatekeeper, and their job is to check not just the story, but the sources too, before it ever sees the light of day. We're talking about building trust right into the process itself. Okay, now this part is really clever. The system isn't a blunt instrument. It's smart. It adapts the rules based on what kind of content you're creating. So if you're doing a big investigative piece on the town budget, you bet you have to upload the actual PDF of the budget. If you're an eyewitness to an event, you can upload photos with GPS data to prove you were there. But if you're writing an opinion piece, sourcing isn't required. And the system makes it super clear to the reader by slapping a big commentary badge on it. It's all about giving the reader the context they need. It's just transparent. Right, so now we've got geographically organized news, and it's verifiably true. That's awesome. But here's the million-dollar question. What good is it if nobody ever sees it? especially now that you can't rely on social media for distribution. So how does local press get this great content in front of people? Their whole philosophy boils down to one simple, powerful idea. Go to where the people already are. It's not about trying to drag everyone back to one single news website. Forget that. The goal here is to push the news out to all the digital places, the online town squares that the community is already using every day. And the secret sauce for this is something they call the feed widget. Just think of it like a little piece of code, super simple, that any local group can just copy and paste onto their own website. We're talking the town hall, the public library, maybe even a local coffee shop. So just imagine this. You go to your kid's school district website to check the calendar, and right there on the homepage is a live, constantly updated, trusted feed of news about school board meetings, team sports, everything. That's the big idea. Okay, so let's put it all together. You've got the geographic foundation, the show your receipts workflow for trust, and this go anywhere distribution model. So what does that all add up to? I mean, how is this really any different from what newsrooms are already using? Well, the key is that this isn't just another website builder. It's designed to be a complete operating system for a virtual newsroom. And it all comes back to that fundamental difference in logic we talked about at the beginning. On pretty much every other platform out there, location is just an afterthought. It's a tag, a label you add at the very end. But in LocalPress, location is the architecture. It's the steel frame that the entire building is constructed around. It dictates everything from what a reader sees to what stories a reporter even has access to cover. So when you actually put it side by side with the competition, you can really see the specific gap LocalPress is trying to fill. I mean, look, tools like WordPress or Ghost are great for what they do, but they just weren't built for this. They don't have that deep geo-hierarchy, and the whole reporter-to-editor workflow usually requires a bunch of clunky plugins. And that awesome embeddable feed we were just talking about, with LocalPress, that's a core feature, right out of the box. You don't have to hire a developer to build it. So really, you can boil the whole thing down to what they call the triad of localism. It's three key things working together. 1, the structural hierarchy, using geography as the blueprint. 2, the virtual newsroom workflow, which forces quality control and builds trust. And 3, universal syndication, this idea of liquid content that can flow anywhere and everywhere it's needed in the community. And that leaves us with one last big provocative thought. The creators call this an architecture of accountability. So the question for all of us is this. By completely rebuilding the technical foundation, the very rails that local news runs on, can a platform like this truly help us win back the trust that has been so badly damaged? I mean, that really seems to be the ultimate mission here. Something to think about.